All right, we're going. What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and we want to welcome you tonight to the big 2-0, episode 20 of Strong and Stronger. Isaac and I have been collaborated before this too, but collaborating on this particular weekly show. It's 20 episodes now, and we really want to thank all of you for joining us along the journey. And as you all know, we have a very, very special guest this evening. He's running just a couple of minutes late. So we'll chit-chat till he gets here, but only about 5 minutes and he'll be here. So, just to give him a proper introduction of everything I know about him, he's Arnold's amateur winner. He actually won that international comp. He was the Mammoth Strength Challenge winner when they decided to kind of call it quits before the truck pull, and that was back in January. He competed at World's Strongest Man 2020, and he is the World's Strongest Man 2021 finalist. He is none other than the American log press record holder, the American Nightmare, Bobby Thompson. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes, so we just wanted to share our excitement with you about Bobby joining us. And for everybody who's on so far, I'd like to remind you, if you like what you have seen so far and have not yet subscribed or like this chat, we'll remind you a little later as well, but please go ahead and subscribe. Kathleen, I know you are subscribed, but yeah, go ahead and like this live stream, subscribe, watch all my stuff, and hey, while you're waiting for a few minutes, open up a second browser, go over to Hunger Smash Fitness and subscribe to him, like all his stuff, and do the same on his Instagram as well. Isaac's working very, very hard to bring you incredible content. And what's up, World's Strongest Blacksmith? I see you in the comment section as well. I just mentioned right before you jumped on that Bobby's just running 5 minutes late, so that should be 3 minutes now. So he should be on pretty soon. And I was just thanking everybody for coming along our journey with us for 20 episodes of Strong and Stronger. This is our 20th episode, the big 2-0. So again, thanks again for all of you. So Kathleen, let's see, says, do you know if Giants Live coming up will be live video for the US? So Kathleen, I just saw the latest video from Big Loz and Liz. You got to mention them together, right? Because she's doing like the majority of the research work. So Loz and Liz mentioned today that there is a live stream. So Official Strongman website has a monthly subscription, but they discovered that there's a Facebook page. And the Facebook page seems to be a one-time only. So I think the Official Strongman monthly recurring rate is $9 a month, I think it is US. But this one-time fee, I believe, was $4.99 UK, like 4.99 pounds, I think. So there is a Giants Live Facebook page where you can do a one-time viewing for the Strongman Classic, where Big Loz will be making what he calls one last competition. I call it a comeback. So I don't listen to LL Cool J. I call it a comeback. So Isaac, what's going on with you?
Oh no, I was gonna comment on that too. I don't know if it's gonna be a comeback or not, because in all of his other videos he's mentioned that he it sounds like it's gonna be a one-time thing, but he sounds like he still has the bug. He still wants to compete, and I think he's going to be coming back a couple more times. I don't think it's just a one-time deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we do this? While we're waiting for Bobby to join, I did want to mention once again the wonderful sponsors who have decided to sponsor this live stream today, and that is Garage Gym Life Media. So for any of you who have watched any of the analysis I've done for a bunch of different contests, from Mammoth Strength Challenge to Central Georgia Strongest Man, if you like the analysis I've done and you want to hear more about the company that's putting together the live streams where you can actually watch those contests live, that's what Garage Gym Life Media is doing. And so I'd like to play you a quick clip where John Greaves III from Garage Gym Life Media can tell you more about that.
The extra motivation I need to get in there and get it done. There is nothing more motivating than seeing people achieving their goals at a powerlifting meet or a strongman competition. And that's why month after month, training in a home gym, especially if you're training by yourself, can be tough, because sometimes you just don't have the motivation to go in your garage or your basement and get it done. And that's why we stream competitions every month on the Garage Gym Life Media YouTube channel. I'm John Greaves, the third founder of Garage Gym Life Media, and after 20 years of training in a home gym, I can tell you that there's some days when I just don't feel like training. And those are the days when I put on some sort of training video or other strength-related content to give me the extra motivation I need to get in there and get it done. There is nothing more motivating than seeing people achieving their goals at a powerlifting meet or a strongman competition. And that's why month after month, we provide that content to you right there in the comfort of your own home on our YouTube channel. Plus, we leave it up forever so you can always just throw it on in the background anytime you need that extra dose of motivation to get you going. And that's why if you're not already a subscriber to Garage Gym Life Media, I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity to add this powerful training tool into your arsenal, because I want you to succeed right there in the best gym in town.
And so I will encourage you to subscribe to Garage Gym Life Media on YouTube and follow them on Instagram. And you'll get the details down in the description below. So thanks again to Garage Gym Life Media for sponsoring this stream. So let's see. We have Tyler, World's Strongest Blacksmith, in the comments saying, Iron Bibby for the 240-kilogram record on Axel. What do you think of that, Isaac? Is he going to get it? I've seen Luke Stoltman doing some prep by himself. He said Tom was on vacation or something, kind of decompressing from the world. But
yeah, sounds like Tom's taking a little bit of time off because I think if the wedding and everything lines up correctly, they're going to try and do the Shaw Classic, but I don't know if because their sister's getting married, I think it was. But it sounds like Tom's kind of
said they're not. I think they officially said they're not going to make it.
Oh, they did officially come out? Okay. But yeah, last I heard was Tom's kind of taking a little bit of a break to kind of recover and recoup after Worlds. With Bibby with the 240 record, I mean, that would be crazy. I know he has the shoulder strength. He could definitely do it. I don't see him training cleans a lot, though. And so with the clean strength and power and all that sort of stuff, if he can get it to his shoulders, he could probably press it and lock it out. I've seen him do stuff like that seated, but not others. Oh, you're still muted, John.
I got to interrupt you, Isaac. We do have our special guest in the lobby, so I'm going to go ahead and let him in. Hey, Bobby, we're live. Thanks for jumping on.
No, sorry I'm late, guys. I had some last-minute stuff I had to knock out, and everything fell apart at one time.
No worries. Let me give you the welcome you deserve that I gave you before you came on. So, ladies and gentlemen, our very, very special guest for the evening. So, 2020 World's Strongest Man competitor. Some of you might not know, just lifting crazy weights at the Mammoth Strength Challenge in January. And then 2021 World's Strongest Man finalist, the one, the only American log press record holder, Bobby Thompson. Thanks, Bobby, for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
No, it's great to be here, guys. Again, I do apologize to you and the viewers for being a few minutes behind schedule. It's totally unacceptable, and it's not a habit I like, or it's not something I like to make a habit.
No worries. It's only a few minutes. So I'm glad. I think everybody in the audience is super excited to see you jump on. And yeah, we just kind of you can guide this wherever you want it to go. But let's talk about the American log press record first, if we can. So how did you first find out about Clash on the Coast? And I don't think it takes very much to get noticed and get invited based on all of your accomplishments. But how did Anthony approach you about that?
So I had made mention in let's see, the year prior, actually, on an Instagram post saying this is something I wanted to do. Be ready, it's coming, kind of thing. Just foreshadowing what my goals were for the following year. And Anthony immediately reached out and said, "Hold up. Like, I can't." It was before the Strength Collective was officially out, was a thing. And it was one of those, I can't tell you how, I can't tell you why, because there's NDAs out and there's money involved, but I'm going to make it happen. And he kept to his word. I wasn't going to do it in the gym. No, like, I knew I wasn't going to waste that in the gym. It was going to need to be the right moment for me. And Anthony Furman stepped up, along with TJ and then Jackson, and they all made it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a pattern with you, right? You don't necessarily max out in the gym. You kind of save it for the competitions, from what I've seen.
Yes, and I mean, I will. So obviously you do need a number to work off of. I mentioned percentages, RPEs, things like that in my training when I'm posting on Instagram, but I do not believe in true blue 100% PRs. I don't believe in them. I believe the body's only got so much to give, especially at maximum amounts of effort. I'm not going to waste that in a gym. I'm not going to do it.
Hey, listen,
Yeah,
your 87% deadlifts or whatnot are still incredible.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Isaac, you want to jump in before I kind of take over this whole thing?
Sure. No, I was gonna say, what was the heaviest log that you pressed in the gym before actually attempting the American record?
So I hit a really I want to say within 3 days of getting back from Bahrain, I hit a really shaky 3 or 4 days, a really shaky like 470, 472. It was, and by shaky I mean it was. You can go back on Instagram and find that video. The clean was beautiful. It took me 3 cleans to get it, and then everything clicked. And I think it was something like 15 to 17 seconds from my chest to overhead. It was a grinder, and it was questionable lockout, but it was definitely closer to a PR than I prefer to have, but it was something that was already programmed for me to accomplish, and the numbers I had done previously put me in position to be able to accomplish it. So I took a shot, and it was enough for the gym.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about your record that you set at Clash on the Coast that really strikes me is, if I'm correct, how close it is to the world record. I think you're only about 6.5 pounds off, right? So you're 478.5, and isn't Z at 480.02 or something,
No,
485.02?
so the world record that stood for roughly 13 years by Z right now is 502. Yeah, which that was one of those things where I had actually discussed with my coach, because just with how I perform a contest versus in the gym, we usually can kind of put stuff together on what we can expect I can actually do. And I had discussed it with him, like, hey, if I get there and I smoke this, do we want to try and do something kind of crazy? And he flat out told me, he's like, if they'll make it worth your time, make it happen. But if it's not the perfect circumstances for you, walk away from it. So that day I had some more in the tank. It was definitely available for me if I wanted it, but just at the time, that's what I needed to do. I sealed my record. I did it injury free. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah, and so just wanted to take a quick minute to remind everybody, if you haven't liked this stream yet and subscribed, please do so. We're obviously giving all our attention to Bobby, so if you have a good question that I'm not seeing, you do have the option for Super Chat. Totally optional, but totally appreciated if you do choose to go that way. Tyler, World's Strongest Blacksmith, says, I watched you blitz the deathlift deadlift at WUS. Do you think you can get 7 reps at 400 kg?
Definitely. Actually, that's something else my coach and I last year we discussed. I've done some pretty fast triples at 400 kilos, and my first year getting ready for 2020 Worlds, I put my deadlift suit on. It was my first time wearing it for deadlifts from the floor, and we wanted to touch that 400 kilo marker just to get a good feel for it. And I smoked 3 reps. And he started screaming at me, stop, stop, stop. And I was mad. I was like, why? Like, this feels great. And he's like, because I knew what you were about to do. He's like, you were about to challenge the world record for that event, and there was be no payout for it. He's like, don't touch it. So it's there. I talked to WUS about it. I was like, hey, if this is going to be available for the home gym, for more of the that home world record stuff you guys were doing, would it be an option, or feats of strength series? And at the time, they said, hey, we're not really looking to do another season of that because things are opening back up. But I do believe trained up and peaked, 7-8 reps at 400 kilos, that won't be an issue.
There's your answer, Tyler. Good question. Awesome. So, Bobby, you kind of have really brought yourself to the upper levels, both in pressing and in deadlift. I don't want to say all of a sudden, but how do you concentrate on things that are so different from each other and become so elite at both of them?
It's a gift. It truly is. We would have to look back at when I first started lifting weights, even, after football had ended for me and strongman wasn't really even an option. I was obsessed with overhead pressing and deadlifts. Like, I was the kid who did not like bench press. I did not like bicep curls. I wanted to overhead. I wanted the deadlift. And those were just the way my body's built. And it works out best in my favor.
So you're not going to jump on the strict curl craze these days?
No, I've already got one torn bicep. I have no need to add another one to the bunch.
I don't blame you, buddy. I don't blame you. Isaac, you want to jump in?
No, I was actually going to ask, are you going to the deadlift championships, the Giants Live or the log championships?
I haven't been invited to either one. There is going to be an American Deadlift Championship allegedly thrown next year unofficially by somebody who will not be named, but it won't take long for you guys to figure it out. So as of next year, I have my sights on destroying the American Deadlift record. Like that's something I've almost done in the gym as is. In terms of the world record for those two events, next year I will have some focus on the world log record. That does have more of my focus than the world deadlift record, only because it's closer in reach for me. And the world deadlift record right now is in such flux. We don't know what it's going to be. I mean, you've got so many guys right there. Like I need a number, and I need time to train for a number. So,
yeah, I mean, you can avoid this question if you like. Do you have any thoughts on the 501 not being done in competition?
No, I really don't. I don't. I do. But then I released a video on that as well when the home feats of strengthening was occurring. You know, at this level, we're in it for passion. We're in it because we love it, but we're also in it to make money. And if somebody comes to you and offers you, and that's it, I don't know how much Thor made, but I can only imagine 6 figures probably wouldn't be out of the realm between sponsorship bonuses and whatever payout was offered him. Like I would throw that number out there and say that would be a reasonable guess. If somebody came to you and offered you that kind of money to do something that you knew was within your realm under perfect circumstances, are you going to say no?
Probably.
I'm not going to. So everybody who jumped on Thor's back for it, and I'm an Eddie Hall fan, by the way. So if I'm sticking up for Thor right now, like everybody jumped on Thor's back for that, they got to relax. Like same thing when people jumped on Rob Kearney when he said it, when he set the American log record in a home gym. Well, you know what? Don't be pissy that somebody gave him that perfect opportunity and he took advantage of it. Like that's really what it comes down to. They picked him for a reason. It wasn't you. So deal with it.
That's kind of like, in one respect, more of a David and Goliath thing. I give Rob more credit because Thor is gigantic.
That's a hard one. Having pulled slightly over 1,000 pounds and pressed the American log record, I can tell you pulling slightly over 1,000 pounds screwed my body up more than that log press did. So I do appreciate the David versus Goliath, but they're almost not comparable. It's very difficult to compare those two.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jiminy Crickets is in the comments. I was at Clash. I was standing 8 feet away, and I never squeezed. I don't know what that means. You know what that is? What that means, Isaac, by any chance?
Never squeezed. Screamed, maybe? Like were they
maybe
trying to say screamed and then like got cut off?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's an autocorrect. I wonder if an autocorrect stepped in and changed the word.
Oh, here we go. He actually added more. Okay. So I was 8 feet away from Bobby at Clash, and I never squeezed harder in the gym than I squeezed my camera rooting for him. Fantastic.
Oh, I can tell you that having competed officially on the biggest stages that the world has to offer for this sport, all of them already, I guess the momentum from the crowd, the energy from the crowd, the environment of Clash was it was unreal. It was very different. It was a mixture of, we had athletes from Canada and the US there. We had all the fat boys together. We were all excited to be with one another, to see each other. We don't get to see each other very often. Between my buddy Nick Best as a commentator, Martins, my girlfriend, she was attempting a world record there as well and upsetting the American Axle clean and press record. There was just so much going on. And then you throw in the people who don't know the sport that were just walking up and down the beach and came over to watch, or the people that were already staying at the hotel. And the genuine excitement that comes from somebody who doesn't entirely understand what's happening, but they are just that genuinely excited because they're seeing something for the first time. You throw all those things together, it's a contest. It's a sensation at a contest that's almost unheard of. It rivals that of the Arnold.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, since you brought her up, is it okay to say who your girlfriend is? Because she's been on my channel and she's so sweet.
Yes, it is perfectly fine.
Yes. Yeah. So is it cool to ask how you and Cory Butler met?
So Cory actually, she wished me happy birthday via Facebook, and I pursued her beyond that point. And at the time, her flirting was of questionable experience, one might say. And she said a few things that I thought she was flirting with me. It turned out she wasn't. So I pursued further, and one thing led to another. It really just kind of all fell into place.
Awesome. That's a good story. Yeah, like I said, she's been on the channel. She's really cool. We had a wonderful interview. She was one of my first interviews, but yeah, tell her I said hello for sure.
I will. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we got some more comments coming. Yeah,
so.
Oh
no! I said she just commented. She says, "Be careful."
Yeah, she's in the comments. What's up, Cory?
There's more to that story that I like to give her a lot of crap about. So that's why I was being very careful how I explained that. But next time you guys have her on, you can ask her how it all went, so she can explain it from her side.
Yeah,
that's similar to how.
I was gonna say I prefer to ask her about truck pulling, but it's cool.
Fair. No, did you guys see the video I posted? She actually she moved the Titans turntable at Worlds.
Oh, really? I didn't see that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, we were out there in familiarization. Excuse me, I didn't post it. She posted it. It's on her Instagram, I believe. And she had asked if she could do it. She asked me, and I was like, I asked Colin, and Colin, in Colin's defense, for insurance purposes, Colin said no. And then people turned around, and I looked at her, and we had the same thought, and she went. So no, she moved the Titans turntable for I think a good 5 or 6 yards in Birkenstocks.
I mean, this is just a novice saying this, but or an idiot, but is it fair to say that since you're if you do it with arms extended, it's almost like digging into her overhead pressing power?
So that's a hard one. Obviously, yeah, strong shoulders are going to help you with that event. But it's one of those things that I found out when I pushed it from that angle. It started cutting off the my carotid artery a little bit. So it actually that was truly an event that we all had some fun with trying to figure out. So you'll see when it comes on TV at Worlds that when the big guys push, it moves a little bit. It definitely was not on a fixed track other than to travel in a circle. So it presented a whole new level of challenges, but it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, we had Travis on recently, and he was saying that it's weird because it seemed like it wasn't that hard to get it going, but it kind of fought back. Like if you tried to push it really hard, it gave more progressive resistance, I guess is the way I would say it.
So since Travis went ahead and said it first, I'll go into detail. This style of event's terrible for me, so I'll go ahead and just say that right now. But he's not wrong. I was asking all sorts of questions about the mechanics and the internals of what we were actually pushing, and anything that's got gears in there, anything that's got gears, a machine like that, the gears are going to have a limiting speed. Like they're only going to want to go so fast. When metal's pushing, grinding, or pushing itself, there is an element of friction involved. You apply more force, there's more friction, there's more surface area tension, there's more surface resistance. So in theory, I'm sure it had a top speed, but it's difficult to tell as we got faster if it pushed more or if we were just gassing out. So there were way too many variables involved, and I didn't have enough time to really kind of assess all of them to figure out why it sucked as bad as it did.
Yeah, and for people in the audience, this is why I'm a big Bobby Thompson fan. Like, if you didn't see him at the Mammoth Strain Challenge, Bobby's methodical about all this kind of stuff, and Bobby, it's awesome to see like how much thought you put into these things. Because at Mammoth, I just was watching carefully and saw how you were kind of inspecting everything before you touched it, and it's just it's really cool to see that fine attention to detail.
Well, you have to. I mean, it's for my own progress, but just as well, we don't. These at contests, nobody wants you to get hurt. Promoters don't want you to get hurt, especially with like Colin Bryce is fantastic about safety, looking at something and going reasonable or not reasonable. Don Idris and Mark Boyd of World's Ultimate Strongman, very similar in fashion, reasonable, not reasonable, safe, not safe. But at the end of the day, we as athletes do have to protect ourselves. So if we see a hole in the ground or a lane we don't like for X, Y, and Z reasons, it is our responsibility to say, this is dangerous. Is there any way we can fix this? And then also offer a potential solution to the problem. So if you see me out, especially on a dirt course, if you see me out there walking, I'm looking for divots and holes because I'm not going to plant my big foot inside one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've brought up Mammoth a couple of times now. Have you heard that David Waters has part 6 coming out already? He's already set up for January?
I've heard something along the lines. I won't be attending, so I haven't looked too deep into it, but I hope it goes well. I hope all the athletes come out of it, come out unscathed, and I hope some guys make some money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is not to belittle all the wonderful things you accomplished there, but what stuck in my mind was, man, I'm not letting my Audi anywhere near that guy.
That deadlift medley needed some fine tuning, but I don't think that will be an issue this coming year.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think Dave will have any issues with that.
Yeah, I wonder if I mean, I think he had talked about maybe confining the scope a little bit. Like he had a lot going on last year, so we'll see what happens this time around. Yeah, that's cool. So, Isaac, what do you say? Should we get into World's Strongest Man talk, or what do you think?
Yeah, I was just gonna say let's start going through, because Bobby, I have to say, I think your heat was the most exciting one to watch, because every event, all the rankings switched. You never knew who was going to come out on top. Like it was crazy watching it on the spreadsheet and the little video snippets that we had access to. Like it's crazy watching that. So yeah, maybe just with event number 1, walk us through what your thought process was and all that.
Oh geez, event number 1, that was the keg carry and the anvil, correct?
Yeah,
loading medley.
The anvil, keg carry, frame medley.
Yep.
Loading medley. Yep. So with that particular event, I was most nervous about the anvil, only because, believe it or not, I'd never carried an anvil in contest. I never picked one up in training. Like that was a blue new event for me. But I also knew that the frame was going to be the frame was going to be incredibly difficult. It was the guys, some of the more experienced guys had already said the frame's going to be difficult. It's going to be a little bit heavier. So I knew realistically all I do was make it to the frame and then finish the frame with heavy implements towards the end of a medley like that. Most guys, I knew that was going to be the break point for a lot of guys. And with where my grip strength is, I knew it wasn't going to be a problem for me. So I was more or less just focused on not screwing up and getting to the frame as fast as possible.
What was your opinion on the barrels? Because I know a lot of people were not happy with the barrels that he used, or the fact that he used barrels. How did you find them?
I didn't find, I mean, they were cumbersome. My biggest concern with the barrels was the fact that the ends with the metal banding, when it was being dropped, so those were being bent and then they were being hammered back into place. And every time that happened, it almost created a blade. So I was initially in my head, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to wear gloves. Well, then I'm going to lose time taking my gloves off, getting to the frame. Hands get sweaty skin tears. Okay, well, I can't wear my gloves now. Just as well, it was there were some T-nails, which, have you ever seen the old blacksmithing nails that they used to like shoe horses with? It's basically what a T-nail looks like. And it's got an edge on it. And if you catch that T-nail on the inside of your arm, it's going to cut your arm open. So it was there. Those barrels were definitely they were a little on the rougher side.
And by the way, we have World's Strongest Blacksmith in the audience here. I bet he's seen those T-nails before, and he actually says he agrees with what you were saying about the gears. He has the same issue on his hand crank forge blowers.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so I'm not too far off with that one then. Yeah. Yeah. So the barrels they weren't very heavy. It was cumbersome, and then there were, especially being the last group to go, everything's been hammered, everything's jarred loose, there's jagged edges. It was just really a matter of finding a safe grip spot, knowing where it was, adjusting your barrels ahead of time, and making it all happen.
Yeah, we've heard some complaints about the girth, but not necessarily the weight, but the girth of the barrels.
You know, I thought that was a good medley. I really did. I didn't like. Obviously, I don't particularly like loading medleys, but that medley was really good in the sense that it didn't become a sprint or a straightaway. Like it truly was like that, having like a lighter implement, then a heavy frame. It created distance in the scores. It wasn't a question of, is my person, stopping their timer faster than the person in the other lane. Like there were some tight scores, but having a medley organized like that, want to test multiple facets of strength, but also it creates separation and division in the groups, which as an athlete is something you want to see.
Okay, cool. And so we have another question in the audience, and we've already asked Travis this question, and Max Boudreau's coming on Wednesday, and I've asked him kind of in private this question, so we know their answers. But what were your thoughts on the heat in Sacramento and how it affected competition?
Oh, Jesus. So it made things absolutely brutal. So I live in Northern Virginia. It's hot and humid. I'm used to hot and humid. And I also heard, okay, Sacramento, California, dry heat. I've been to Lubbock, Texas. I like dry heat. But let me tell you what, the whole dry heat thing doesn't matter when it's 110 plus degrees outside. Like the whole oh, this isn't bad because it's dry. It stops at like 105. At 110, it doesn't matter. It sucks either way. It made it rough. I actually lost. I was home for 3 days, got on a scale and weighed 332. I went to that contest at 350. So yes, I lost. The heat was a factor I wasn't truly prepared for. I know a couple. I like to think that them experiencing that this year means that next year they'll do some things differently in terms of keeping implements covered, not sitting on top of black stall mats. But I mean, it's world's strongest man. Like it's only ever been in icy climate. It's only been in like an icy or snowy location one time. So you can almost always assume it's going to be hot.
Yeah, they got to find some sort of temperate location that's halfway in between, I think.
I mean, I thrive in the chaos and the extreme environments. Like that gets me going. Like, how bad is this about to suck? Like, okay, cool. Like let's really dig in and find out. Well, let's test your mortality a little bit. Let's see how tough you actually are. So I kind of hope it stays really bad. Like walking around sucked, but like in the moment, I loved it. That's where I want to be.
Yeah. So, I mean, Isaac's going to go through all the events, but I'm just going to jump ahead because I have a question about the log press. So I think you talked about in one of your posts about the Valsalva Maneuver and kind of how it maybe went a little longer than it should have. For folks in the audience that don't know what that maneuver is, can you kind of describe it and how you implemented it and how maybe you would have done it differently, or maybe you couldn't?
In that situation, I wouldn't have done anything differently. And I'll explain why here in a second. But what the Valsalva maneuver is, it's basically when you hold your breath and you push. That's literally all it is. Let it be when you're going to the bathroom, when you're deadlifting, when you're overhead pressing. You're holding your breath and you're pushing. You're applying force. And it does ultimately cause a skyrocket in blood pressure, and there's a lack of oxygen getting to the brain as the body's attempting to push blood to other extremities, and it can't do it. Ultimately, if you do it too long, you pass out. However, I'm known for my ability to grind. And that's something I'm known for, that slow overhead capability, that guy who can finish lifts that people normally can't. And I think with a mixture of the heat and just the stress, the overall environment, and that attempt was, I want to say, 2 kilos below my American record, which I set at probably 15 pounds heavier than I was on that day if we look at the weight I lost over time. And that's all we did that day. So would I have changed it? No, not at all, because I knew what I needed to do. I needed to make up some points, and my strategy going in was, okay, I'm committed. I have to do this, and I'm either going to or I'm not. And I've said a few times, I'm too stupid to quit. It's one of my greatest gifts, and it will probably be what kills me. But I wouldn't have quit on that lift. I won't do it. My body has to make me.
And you got to respect that for sure. So, I mean, the end result there was like a little bit of lightheadedness, right? Or did you actually faint or?
Oh, I was lights out.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gone. And that's what happens. I mean, I've done it before in training. It's not uncommon in strength sports. It's really not. I mean, I'm sure there's a smarter class of strength athlete out there than myself that goes, hey, I probably shouldn't do this right now. But I'm just not that guy.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say. So if you know you're gonna do a Valsalva or anything, do you do any like deep breathing beforehand to prepare your body?
So to prepare my body it depends on the lift I'm doing. If I'm, for instance, in log press, you'll know I do tend to spend a little more time in the lat position than most people. I get down there, I hang out. That is where I start doing the majority of my breathing. It's deep breath in, hold, brace, lift, get it to my lat, and then that's when it may not be as apparent or as exaggerated as that because the log's sitting on my lap, but that's when I'm forcing oxygen into my body, slowing down my heart rate, basically calming down, getting rid of the jitters, and then I start to perform. But it was a mixture of the elements. We've been competing for damn near a week. It was hot. I'd lost some weight I didn't know about. It just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was a tough environment for sure. Tyler, World's Strongest Blacksmith, actually said, this is back to what we were saying before about the anvils. He said, speaking as a blacksmith and watching World's Strongest Man, the style of anvil they use for the loading medley are terrible for that style of carrying.
Yes, I would agree.
That's funny. So maybe we move on to the next event. So the next event was the deadlift, and Bobby takes 5 points. Is that any surprise to anyone, really?
That was a good event for me. I going in, I knew it would be. I looked at the guys in my group, and I was, and now understand, I took 5 points in that event. I dominated my heat with that event, but at that level, the guys that pulled that for 5 and 6 reps, like that's still very impressive, in particular on the setup we were given. So, but it's just one thing I think that set me apart in that event is I had trained in my suit staying braced. And that was, so you see a lot of the guys, they'll drop down, they'll sacrifice tension, and then they'll go ahead, reset themselves and stand up. I know it's a race, especially with a suit on. Like, go ahead, speed through it, sprint, get as many reps out as you can before your body stops. Because you're basically fighting almost like a state of hypertrophy in a compressed environment inside a suit. And just because you pick up and stop does not mean that blood's going to circulate slower. So it's like, okay, I need to pick this up and move it, because ultimately my cardio this year was in the best shape it's ever been. So I knew this isn't going to be a cardio issue. It's truly just going to be who blows up first, like who's got too much blood in certain places and can't finish. So it was being able to stay braced, hit the ground, come back up. I had a good pace with my judge, and ultimately I think that is what really pushed me over the edge and let me dominate that event.
Yeah, then you had 3 guys tied at 6 reps each, and for Kevin being a lighter guy, 6 reps is really, really impressive.
Kevin is I don't want to say he's the most underrated strongman in America, but he is one of the most underrated strongmen in America. Even being a finalist, like, people just constantly count that dude out. And I've known Kevin since, we started competing against each other for the first time in 2019 or early 2020. I want to say 2019, early 2020. And it just, everywhere we go, people count him out. Like, they see him walking by, like nobody pays attention to him. Like, you say Kevin Fairs, and unless you're in the sport and very analytical, you might not know who he is. And I was like, oh, that's a giant killer. Like, just wait. He's going to sneak up on you. Well, the funny part is, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, the funny part is, a lot of people don't realize Kevin's an elite level squatter. Like, he hasn't ever gotten that event to really show off yet. But that man gets in a squat event, just move over and take notes. Like, move over and take notes.
Absolutely. I mean, you think part of it is self-promotion? I don't know. Does he post enough? Guys like Wesley Claiborne, for example, are incredible, but not I don't want to quote you, but I think I heard you say this on Zola's podcast about Wes doesn't really like toot his own horn enough, and maybe Kevin's in the same boat. What do you think?
Yeah, potentially. I don't think the guy. I was the same way, and then it was Kenneth Nowicki, my sponsor, or one of my sponsors. He's my primary sponsor that pushed me to start doing it. And I can remember saying the same thing to Wes. I'm like, you have to tell people how good you are. As far as Kevin goes, I don't know. Kevin is humble. He's very honest. He's very upfront. If he's good at something, he will tell you. But he definitely isn't going to be the guy saying my junk's bigger than your junk. And ultimately, in today's environment, I think you have to have some of that on social media. And Kevin's a purist. Social media, it's all about training and family. And that's about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That was a great interview on Darren Zola's podcast, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's a buddy of mine. So, Isaac, you want to jump into the next event?
Yeah. So the next one was the fingers, right? Fingal's fingers.
Yep.
And let me see, what'd you get? So you got third place in that, 4. Mm-hmm. Yeah, third place. So 4 in 36, a little over 36 seconds. How did that go for you?
So that was an event I really didn't know what to make of. That was the third time I'd ever touched a Fingal's finger, ever. So it was kind of like, I really don't know how this is about to go, but we're going to find out. And I was impressed with myself. I was like, okay, this is great. I thought I went a lot faster than I did. Kevin and I both did. We watched Novikov and Stoltman go. And Kevin and we got to the 5th one. I got it further up than he did, but we dropped and looked at each other like, man, we just flew through those. Like, that's a good time. And then they announced that we're like 7 or 8 seconds slower than those two. And we're just staring at each other like, holy shit. Like, that's not what we expected. I stumbled on the first one. I think that cost me about half a second to a full second. I do believe I could have gotten the 5th finger had I been more familiar with the training stimulus. I really didn't know what to expect, but I did. When the video comes out, you will see that my lower back, it arcs. Like, I start losing my upright position and my forward position and my neutral spine. And once I felt that arc, I was really considering fighting it out. Like, I had the upper body available to get it done. But as I worked it further and further up, I just could feel my spine starting to have more of a very like shear-like angle to it. And I was like, you know what? It's too early for this. Like, we got to dial back and reassess. So.
Yeah, and it looks like you just edged out Kevin by 6/100ths of a second. Is that right?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. So Kevin and I are looking at each other, waiting to hear who won. So it's kind of like, all right, well, what's going on? And they're not talking to us. They're not telling us. They're not giving us anything. And we go and they tell us to come off, and we're sitting under the tent. And I'm looking at Darren Sadler, and like 5-6 minutes has gone by. I'm staring at him like, I need you to tell me now. Like, I need to know what's like, this is like, this is getting really bad. Darren just looked at me and he just gave me a thumbs up and then looked away. I was like, okay, that's all I needed. And then they came over and they told Kevin just to kind of give him some comfort on the score, on how they scored it to make sure, because 6/100ths of a second, at that point in time, you have to question time, like the timer's error, basically. But he's like, look, we slowed it down. We played it frame by frame. And my last finger hit the pad half a finger before Kevin's did, about half a finger space. So it was literally my follow through and pushing it down. And then maybe the nap that flew by that made it drop fast enough to beat him.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of that technique in Novikov's prep leading into World's Strongest Man, where he would lift up the finger and kind of clothesline it on his way past, which I think maybe gives it that few extra hundredths of time gain back.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. It wasn't, and I'm going to be honest with you, pushing it down was not something I did on purpose. It just happened. I don't want to call it instinctual, because I'm not skilled enough in that event to even have instincts in regards to it. But it just happened that way is all for me.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is I saw Brian Shaw did on his channel on Shaw Strength. He was saying the ground had a bit of an incline, so there was a little adjustment that had to happen there. Did you notice the same thing?
Yes, the ground had. I noticed that in particular on the medley event in the finals. The ground had an incline, and just as well on the lane that was furthest away from the cameras, it was slanted down. So you were basically going sideways on the side of the hill.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, as far as TV, we've only seen Group 1 so far, so I haven't seen how it went for you guys yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the beast wants to know, what are your tips for log lift?
Oh Jesus. Well, Beast, what I'm going to tell you is that I offer 2 different services on social media. I do event-based video chats, 30 to 45 minutes for $25 right now, as well as I do online coaching through the Strength Collective. So tips on log, I need to see your log before I offer you tips, because there's 6 different rabbit holes we can go down for that question.
How does that event-based work? Is it like Zoom or something of that nature, or?
So I prefer to do it via Instagram, on Instagram video chat, but I'm open to all platforms. Whatever. If you don't have Instagram, we'll do it on Facebook. If you don't have
$25 is a steal. I'll do it. I mean, that's an incredible bargain.
Man, it's just literally all I do is I have guys send me 3 to 4 videos of the event they want to go over. Obviously, relatively, the more recent, the better. With a log press, I do ask for a side and a front view, and I take a day or so, depending on what my schedule looks like. I take a day. I write out my notes in my notebook. I put their name at the top of it. I reach out to them. I was like, hey, what time do you want to do this? We're looking at 30 to 45 minutes. They give me a date and a time. I pencil them in. They send me payment. And then we do a 30 to 45 minute video chat. It's everything from the things I see right away to different things they can do to fix that. And it moves on. But some people have questions about programming implementation. I won't do a full program right then and there for them. But in terms of, different, just quick little exercises they can do to help them. I mean, it's not, you call it a steal, and I guess I can agree, but for me, for 30 to 45 minutes, $25 is plenty. Like, it doesn't, there was a time where more people than I care to count gave me information for free. So, like, realistically, I'm just trying to pay a few bills with it. I'm not trying to rip money out of anybody's pocket. So $25 gets you a 30 to 45 minute conversation, and it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's very commendable. I'm coming from a perspective of you get to work through all of your years of experience that you bled for. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
I never paid my coach a dime. To this day, I've never paid that man a dime. And
wow.
He's come to Florida. He's gone to North Carolina. We've driven to Roanoke, Virginia, which is about 4 hours out of way, like to go to different gyms and train. And he drove me. He's bought me food. He's fed me when I was hungry. So it's kind of, it's getting ready for the Arnold Pro. The man took a deer, went and had it cut up and processed for me, and gave me the meat, saying, we got to put some weight on. Money's tight here. So coming from somebody who did all of that for me, and just out of the own kindness of his heart, like unfortunately, having had that, I can't ask for much more than what I am now.
Yeah, it's great that you pay it forward. It really is. So I mean, you brought up food, so I have to ask you about the vegan meals at World's Strongest Man.
So that got a really bad rap, actually. Like, there was one mistake they made in regards to food, but it wasn't the vegan. The vegan stuff was just an option if we wanted it. I stayed away from it. I did have the vegan milkshake, because one, in between events, you don't want to eat. Like, you're not hungry. It sucks. It's hot out. Like, so you're just, whatever you can get down, you're getting down. The vegan milkshakes were absolutely amazing, and they didn't rot my stomach, which most anything dairy does. But what they did do, they catered Mexican on the last day of the finals at a strongman contest where it's 120 degrees outside, and there was one stall in the bathroom.
Oh, really?
World's Strongest Man is a fantastic organization. Endeavor is doing a lot of their media stuff. IMG is fantastic. I cannot tell you how badass the crew was, but they dropped the ball on that one. That is my only complaint, is don't cater Mexican at a strongman contest. It doesn't work for anyone.
Yeah, I can imagine. And one stall in the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
the one stall in the bathroom wasn't their option. It's the venue we were at.
Yeah. But I forget, was that milkshake, was it oat or cashew? Because Travis mentioned it too.
I want to say it was cashew.
Yeah, so you're the second person. Travis also said it was freaking delicious. So you're the second person to say that.
It was amazing. Totally caught me off guard.
All right, so hats off to that. What was the name of that company again? I'd love to give them a shout out. I forgot the name.
I don't remember. I wish I did.
Yeah. Go ahead, Isaac. I cut you off.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask, was the stall at least well ventilated? Because with all those guys going in there, you'd want
So
some airflow, I think.
I will say it was a handicap stall, which is nice. But yeah, it was a handicap stall, but I mean it's as well ventilated as that bathroom's gonna be, man. Like it just kind of is what it is.
All right, we have some more questions. This is a good one. So maybe a little too forward-looking, but will next year's World's Strongest Man be tougher with Martins, Mateus, Novikov, Tom, and Brian potentially being healthy and competing? Are they the Heat's #1 seed? So yeah, I don't have any knowledge about how seeds are done. Do you want to explain that a bit?
Yeah, so as from what I understand, Graham Hicksey was the guy who explained it to me this year, is every group is gonna have their #1 is gonna have a #1 contender from last year. So basically they're gonna take the 5 guys that placed first in their heats, and every group's gonna inadvertently have one of those guys, right? Then every group's gonna have a guy that placed second. Okay, second in the heat. So another guy who also went to the finals. Your third place is going to be your guy who almost made it to the finals. Okay. And then your fourth place and your fifth place are going to be the guys who they're going to mix those around a little bit. First timers. I will definitely say that I feel like there is a feeder fish position. Just kind of a guy that it may be their first time there, or maybe there wasn't anyone else from that country that could make it, that kind of gets stuck in there in the mix. I believe I was that position, or gets like a late invite. I was that position my first year once. I got 4 weeks notice. Like, I'm a feeder fish. They're filling a spot. Okay, cool, no problem. So that's how it usually lays out. The only issue the reason my group was the group of death was completely the fault of Luke Stoltman. Because Luke Stoltman is a finalist. Any year that man is at World's Strongest Man, he is a finalist. That's the way you have to look at Luke. He is that caliber of athlete any given day of the week, with no matter who's in his group. Last year, Luke didn't have the best showing. So he was that 4th position seed. Well, he wasn't a legitimate 4th position seed. That man is a finalist. So that's why our group was the group of death, because we had 3 finalists in our three of last year's finalists in our group, basically.
And one was the winner.
Yeah, right. One was the previous World's Strongest Man. It happens every year. There's always one group that's set up that way as a group of death. It just so happened to be my group this year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Alexi, do you have any thoughts about his spinning around backwards on the frame carry and whether that should be allowed or not?
I mean, Alexi, he's not the first one to do it. Actually, the first person I've seen Belsac do that twice. One was at the Arnold in person. I want to say the other time I saw him do it on YouTube at another Arnold Classic event. So he learned it from watching somebody else. Do I believe it should be outlawed? If you get to that point, like, he's not going to pick it up and move it any substantial distance. So I don't think it should be outlawed. I believe if you are completely lifting it up off the ground and falling, you can do the same thing while you're moving forward. So I believe as long as he is not sliding it, it shouldn't be an issue. But I do believe you should be held to there should be a more, like, the judgment of what a slide is should be a little bit more critical from that position, I think.
Yeah, I mean, watching as a bystander, it seems like slides aren't always purposeful. Like, you're throwing your momentum forward and it just slides, like it carries forward. Sometimes you can't help it.
Yeah, I do think I'm a rule follower to the T. Like, I do my damnedest to play exactly by the rules. And I personally would like to see slide penalties handed out more freely. 100%. I do believe there are certain situations where people get away with it. I will say that this year there were some I saw that I feel like should have gotten penalties, but I will also say that Magnuson was consistent. 100% through. Like, and who am I to tell that man he's doing his job wrong? Just my opinion. I saw some slides I felt like should have gotten called, but I never saw a slide penalty that got called for somebody else that didn't get called on the other person. So I would, if I have to kind of have my cake and eat it too, I'd like to see him be a little more strict with it. But I will say the man's consistent, so I can't complain.
Yeah, if you had your druthers, what would be the remedy there? Would it be to reduce distance, or take the time before that last lift that involved the slide was done? Like, how would you remedy that situation?
I would tack 2 to 3 second penalties on every slide. Like 100%. Like, now I don't, if with a yoke, it's difficult. So, and this is also kind of the gray area. Like, you're never just going to drop a yoke flat and it's going to stop moving. So that's kind of the issue. Like, I've dropped yokes in contest and it slid 2 or 3 inches. So am I going to look at that and say, no, that deserves, that doesn't deserve a slide penalty, but it was a slide? That's kind of the gray area. So that's why I tend to keep my mouth shut on those matters, because I've seen enough to know that it's not always that easy.
Right. Yeah, I saw a yoke slide at the Shaw Classic last year. There's no reason to bring up who it was anymore. That's in the past. But yeah, I saw one of those.
Yeah.
So, Isaac, it looks like you were off camera for a few seconds, but welcome back. You want to jump into the next event in the heat?
Yeah, had to check on the kids real quick. So are you on the overhead medley now, or did you already talk about that?
No, we can do overhead.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was actually a little surprised because I didn't put money down, thankfully, but I expected you to do a little bit better with the overhead medley. I haven't seen all the footage of it yet, though, so I don't know what all happened with that. But you just want to go through that a little more?
Yeah. So I can tell you I didn't give the second dumbbell the respect it deserved. We were using the Rogue Monster bells, and that was my first time touching one of those, which the handles are like 3 inches around, which is about an inch larger than your standard Circus. So that threw my balance off a little bit. And it's a common mistake or error in thought process to see somebody go, "That's a great presser. The press medley is his." Now, if that press medley had been ungodly heavy, yes, yeah, I'd have ruined some lives. But it wasn't very heavy. So where that comes into play or where that kind of changes things, it becomes all about your transition time. Like, that's what it comes down to. How fast can you clean, get it to your shoulder, get it overhead? How athletic are you getting from implement to implement? Those are the things that make the difference. So, and I missed the first press with the second dumbbell. I didn't drop it, but I brought it to my shoulder and repressed it. But if you also look at my score compared to the scores in the other heats, there were 1 or 2 other heats where that score would have been second or third place. So
that's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is looking at it is like it's still a decent score, and I mean, granted, given the people you had in your group, yeah, I mean, I expected all of them to be getting really good scores, basically. And like I said, I haven't seen the footage of your competition yet, but I just expect it to be a little bit faster. So, but I didn't know about the second part.
Yeah, like, so the dumbbells slowed me down quite a bit. And then I actually also, I made the mistake. I should have cut inside. So they had a side-by-side. So I made the mistake where I cut outside of the implements to the edge that was closest to the ground. And we were on it was an elevated platform style. And the stall mats actually extended further than the solid ground we were standing on. And my foot actually hit the end of the stall mat, and then the ground disappeared. So I stumbled and had to regain myself, get moving again. So between that and the dumbbell miss, it did cut my time down. Do I think I would have beat Kevin in that event, even if I hadn't done those two things? No, I don't. I don't. I honestly still think that if I didn't have those two mistakes and the guys executed the same way they did, no, that still would have shook out just the same.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking with Big Laws before World's Strongest Man about the Overhead Medley, and we had kind of different predictions from each other. And he's telling me Tom's going to win it, and I said, "You think Tom's a better presser than Trey?" And he said, "In a medley, yes." Didn't turn out that way, Laws, buddy. Did not turn out that way.
Well, Laws isn't wrong very often, but it does.
No, he's not. Nah, he and I like jabbing each other a little bit. He's a good guy.
Well, because Trey beat Tom by like 10 seconds or something like that, didn't he? Like, it was a pretty big lead. I thought it was pretty insane.
Yeah, Trey, man, he's so unless you've been following Trey for quite some time, you're not going to know it. But Trey's actually a ridiculously good dumbbell presser. Like, if you look back into Trey's training, he hasn't been doing as much dumbbell, but Trey's actually phenomenal with the dumbbell.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff he did with kegs at Texas Strongest Man kind of makes you forget about everything else. That was some crazy keg tossing.
Yeah, and I do want to go ahead and defend the promoter for that contest. Those people with the pads were not told to stand back there with those pads. That was a decision they made all on their own. So once I came onto that tidbit of information.
Yeah, no, we haven't heard that inside information yet, so thanks for that.
Yeah, so they were, to my knowledge, from what I've heard from people who were there involved, they were not instructed to do that.
Yeah, I got to find some footage of that because I think Gabe came in second. I want to see his tossing.
Yeah, no, they did that. That was unique. I mean, throwing a full size keg isn't easy.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you did all the implements on the overhead press. How, talk about the two different kinds of awkwardness, kind of a fixed axle versus a whippy circus barbell. Like, how are they both difficult in different ways? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that axle wasn't fixed. Yeah, that axle was not fixed.
Interesting.
Yeah. My response exactly, Isaac. I thought it was going to be. I asked in the boneyard. They told me it wasn't fixed. It didn't feel fixed when I grabbed it. But I can gladly discuss the fixed axle. A fixed axle, because of the nature of it, unless you have a lot of mobility and can get it to your chest and upright, which I don't have that kind of mobility, you basically have to clean it from the rack 2 position, which is kind of up on your belly. And you basically have to let go of it and let it do what it's going to do in the air and just hope it lands in the right spot. It's pretty much what it's pretty much what it kind of comes down to. Versus the circus barbell actually gave me, I was concerned and hesitant only because those globes were so close together and I'm pretty wide up to the shoulders. So I was concerned that my elbows were actually going to strike the globes when I was attempting to clean it, which they barely missed it, which worked out in my benefit. I didn't see too much issue with the circus barbell. It wasn't as whippy as years past. It had a little bit of whip and a little bit of stability challenge to it, but it wasn't super crazy. In years past, the thing looks like a cheap mattress almost, just kind of up and down, which in turn makes the press easier and the clean easier if you can time the oscillation of the implement well.
That's an interesting response. We're getting some more questions in the audience. And by the way, for anybody in the audience, if I'm missing your questions, you do have the super chat available to you. Totally optional, but totally appreciated if you do go that way. Andrew Schrader says, who will be the future strongmen in America besides Bobby and Trey after Shaw retires and declines? I'll give you my answer is Gabriel Pena, but you can go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, Gabe. Gabe's coming hard and fast. Gabe's very strong. I think he's been kind of waiting to kind of get his foot in the door. It's already in the door, but I think he's been waiting to push the door open a little bit. Some stuff happened at Worlds this year. I know he was under the impression when we got to Worlds for a minute that he was going to be going. I didn't like the way that shook out personally. That's just me, but I understand why it shook out the way it did. I don't have to like it though. However, him going to Giants Live for that event, if he can do well enough, the most difficult part of the Giants live circuit, especially in the UK, is just getting in. But if he can get there and do well enough for them to keep him, Gabe's in. So I would agree, Gabriel Pena, and then there's this guy by the name of Jose Baez, where if he ties everything together on the right day, Jose is going to give some people some trouble.
Jose was at Clash on the Coast too, and I've DM'd with him. What a nice guy. It's funny because when I interviewed Gabe, I asked him who was your favorite strongman to compete with, and he said Jose Baez.
Yeah, yep. Jose's funny. Like, and that's God, favorite guy to compete with. That's a hard one. I'd have to ask why first off. Like, I didn't know Gabe's pretenses for answering that question, but it's cool because the guys at Clash were not they were the guys that nobody, I don't want to say nobody pays attention to, but they may be the guys who aren't getting called up right now. So that was neat how they went about doing that, pulling some guys in for some attention.
Yeah, and to be fair, Gabe mentioned Trey too. I think they came up kind of together, and so those are kind of his two favorite guys that he mentioned.
Those guys, that's the funniest relationship in the world because they're like arch nemesis. Like those guys, like they're the two big boys in Texas. Like they're really far away from each other geographically in Texas, but you know who's the strongest man in Texas. Like you're gonna, even with that contest, you're gonna get two different answers. It's gonna be Trey or it's gonna be Gabe. So I want to see the showdown on the big stage between those two.
Yeah, it's funny how you say they're so far apart in Texas. So I have people at work that report to me who live in Texas, and so they gave me some fun facts. They're like, there are places in Texas that are closer to Cuba than they are to other places in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like it's like Trey drove to Clash on the Coast for the American Log Championship, right? His family drove. And I asked about Gabe, and he's like, yeah, Gabe's got like another 6 to 8 hours to get out of the state to drive unless he's going to Mexico. Like it's like,
so I'm in New Jersey. We can do a few laps in that amount of time.
Exactly.
Good question though.
Yeah.
So World's Strongest Blacksmith asks, what do you think of Travis's return?
Travis is probably his return. I'm anxious. I was a little anxious in the beginning because I was worried that he was going to expect himself to be the Ortmeyer that was. And having spoken to him, Travis is one of my favorite people. He truly is. I got to drink bourbon with him in Kentucky at the little athlete get together, drink bourbon, eat barbecue. He and I got to really have some in-depth conversations. And then at Worlds, he was one of my go-to guys, shooting the shit, talking. So in the beginning, like I said, I was anxious because I didn't want him to expect himself to be the Travis that was. But now that I've seen he is more concerned with the Travis that is, like I'm pumped. I want to see it. Travis is one of those guys that needs to be in the sport in some capacity. He never got the chance to do what I call ascending in the sport, which is what Brian Shaw is doing right now. He's working. He's not disappearing. He's working his way out of it, into a higher role. Terry Hollins is doing the same thing. And I always felt like Travis needed to do that as well. And it looks like he is. So I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, we agree. I'll speak on Isaac's behalf. Travis is one of our favorite people as well. He's been on both of our channels a bunch of times, and we really, really enjoy speaking with him.
Mm-hmm.
So good question.
Yeah, his nickname on our channels is the world's strongest philosopher, because that dude can really go in depth into some philosophical thinking. It's pretty fun.
And it's the only kind of thing that you can only, that kind of thinking doesn't just, it's not just there for somebody. Like you have to earn that by going through some things that no human should have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really happy to see him compete for sure. So I know that some folks felt like he didn't deserve to be there and all that, but I mean, he did really well at Mammoth until he got injured. It's not like he's not at a high level. He is.
It is Travis Ortmeyer. When you do certain things in this sport, there are certain privileges you are awarded. You know, Brian Shaw's got them, Jerry Pritchett's got them, Terry Hollins has got them. If they don't have them, they should certainly as hell have them. Travis Ortmeyer deserves that opportunity to come back.
Yeah, speaking of, what do you think of Brian's performance this year? So watching him in qualifiers, I thought this guy's going to run away with it, and then he comes in second, and that's somehow a disappointment, like because he set such a high bar. Like, what do you think?
So I wanted, like, I was on social media watching people saying he's old, he's washed up, he's done. I told you so. He wouldn't win. One, he came second at the World's Strongest Man to the likings of Tom Stoltman. First, shut up, don't speak. Like, everybody deserves an opinion, but you have proven yours is wrong. So don't speak. And then I kind of got to know Brian and realized how nice of a guy he actually is. I'm like, yeah, y'all need to get off that man's back. Brian's got one more win in him. He didn't have it this year because Tom Stoltman, who arguably is the future of the sport right now, showed up and showed out. Like,
you got to say, I mean, Tom won the first two events in the finals, and then Brian closed a gap that seemed to everybody, even much more knowledgeable people than myself, it seemed insurmountable, and he was very, very close. And you know, let's just say they called him washed up last year. He was 50, improved to second this year. So the guy is not the furthest thing from washed up.
No, and that's the thing. There's never that big of a difference between fifth and second place. Like, there'll be a point spread, yes, but a lot of people don't realize how tight that is in the finals. One minor screw up, one anything. You didn't tie your shoelaces right. You know, you tripped. You turned your head too fast. Like, it's the room for error is so minute at that level that it's so easy to fall just right down the point scale and not fight your way back up.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest example of that is Luke Stoltman, who you mentioned earlier, who was so consistent throughout the heats and the finals, fourth going into the stones, and just a little slip on one stone knocks him down to 7. The guy was a hair away from the podium.
Yep. No, 100%. And it was, understand, I'm very much for my country. I'm naturally going to cheer for the guys from my home. I wanted Tom to take this one. Like, I said to him a few times, like, I walked up and I would look at him, and Tom is one of the most humble men you're ever going to meet. And it's just who he is. I walked by him a few times and looked up at him. I was like, you know, you can beat him, right? And he just kind of looked down at me and he would just kind of shake his head. I was like, okay. And yeah, I did that 2 or 3 times. I wasn't trying to blow smoke up his ass. I wanted him to win. Like, the man, that his story, his book deserves that chapter. It needed to happen for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac and I, we do the math on who we think is going to win, and then there's who do you want to win. Mm-hmm. And I make no bones about I wanted JF to win. Like, there's no that's my opinion.
Yeah, you know, that was a rough one. I would like for JF to have his World's Strongest Man title. Yes, very much so. He deserves it. But you've got the guys who you say who deserve it, like JF, who's been so close so many times. He is a threat anywhere he goes. It is truly scary how good at everything he is. But then you see somebody who's got the story that needs to end that way. And that's where Tom got my vote. Like, what Tom was doing is greater than strongman. And I'm sorry, but Absolutely. The sport needs that. We need that guy.
Yeah, you're right. How many do you think he has in him?
Tom? As many as he wants. Tom has as many as he wants in him. Until the day he just, like, that's the thing. He might not win them all at once. He might not win them at will, but there's not a doubt in my mind if Tom makes a decision that he wants that, you know, wants 5, wants 6, and he chooses to hold on to that man's going to get 5 or 6 or he's going to die.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just if you ever get a chance to meet him in person and see him in action, not from a distance, but up close, you know, if he looks at you and says, I'm going to run through that cement wall, he's going to run through the cement wall. Like, that's just the guy he is. He has that X factor.
Yeah, that's I can imagine. I'll take your word for it, having that up close and personal contact. So, just switching quick gears, how'd you do so well on the pickaxe hold?
So yeah, I had. Yeah, I'm that guy you have to stick in a corner. Like you stick me in a corner, it's do or die. And it doesn't help that I'm not great at stones. It's well known. So I knew if I got into the stone off with the guys that were in my group, there was a really good chance I wasn't going to come out on top. And I made the decision. Like I told myself I was going to hold on as long as I could. In my head, I gave an insurmountable number. So I'm going to stand there for 2 minutes. If that's what it takes, no problem. This is what I'm going to do. And I took myself to a really dark place. I'm really good at playing the emotional game with myself, and I know when to turn loose that adrenaline dump, when to find it. And I chose to relive a very traumatic experience in my life. And there's a photographer out there that she told my girlfriend she actually got a picture of me, like what looked like I was in tears right before I went out, because I played that game that hard in my head. I had told myself that what happened will be rectified if I win this, if this happens. And I grabbed it, I turned loose that adrenaline dump, and I let it happen.
That's incredible. So similar to a scenario that Eddie built up for himself during the deadlift world record. Is this a scenario you've used before, or was this kind of a first time deal?
It's my go-to. The difference is Eddie had to build his. Mine was something I'd already been exposed to. So it's a little bit easier to reach back and grab. But it gets like I was a wreck for the good. Like I was a wreck for probably until the end of that event. Like I was a wreck. Like I went off by myself. Cory was close to me. Like it was okay. Like I was bent over a fence. Like I was trying to get my head back together. But in all reality, all I did was decide I was going to win. Like there's numerous complex methods in which you can go to put yourself in that position. But they're all simple in the sense like it's just a decision. If you decide, it's going to happen.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were trying to put up an insurmountable time, you did win by quite a bit. So it certainly
It's not the time that was in my head, but it was good enough.
Yeah, it panned out the way you planned for sure. Yeah, because folks say that, like Big Loz, for example, was saying some people train front hold and it gets worse the more you train it. It's just unpredictable that way. So that's why I wanted to kind of get your insight on how you were able to do so well.
I would like to tell you that I had some very complex style of linear progression and conjugate, but in all reality, I trained it twice in the whole prep. And after that, after that, I was like, all right, cool. This is what we're going to do. And it was just a matter of who could die last.
Awesome. Isaac, you have any more qualifying heat questions?
No, I think you covered most of it. Sorry, my video has been pretty laggy. I'm not sure. My Wi-Fi is always spotty, so it just seems like today's one of those days. Yeah, no, I think the heat was amazing. It was, yeah, like I said, it was awesome watching you guys go back and forth and everything. So yeah, if you want to start getting into the finals, what was your opinion of the Giants medley, the first event there?
The Giants medley, it was too light. Right off the bat, too light. And that's my opinion. Like it was Adam Bishop and I was gauging my success off of Adam Bishop's time. But he made the one mistake. He and I both made the exact same mistake, and we gave the frame too much respect. We were expecting some monster. Like, okay, well, the finals are going to be heavier than the heats. Like, the heats was that frame said 825 on it, but I think actually it was weighed out at like 845-ish. So it was kind of like, I think they got the paint job done, waited after, and it's just kind of what happened. But that frame was definitely a little bit heavier. So in our head that they were going to somehow make the frame more difficult than the one in the heats, it wasn't the case. The frame was actually, I think that frame in the finals was like 770 or so.
Oh, was it really? It was lighter?
Yeah, it was lighter.
Wow. As far as the frame in the heats, we have heard, and it's a live stream that's on the channel. It's no secret, but Travis told us the same thing. Yeah, I think he said he saw another little label on it somewhere that was 840 something.
Yeah, like I had heard it from reputable sources, the guys out there, like just kind of like, hey, like that frame. But what they did do this year is that they replaced the handles, and that frame they made the handles thicker because apparently in previous years they had been thinner, and thinner handles will peel your skin right off. So they had actually replaced the handles for us to kind of sustain some of our hands.
Yeah, I'd heard about that. When I talked to JF a few months ago, he was saying, like, yeah, if they're going to use that same red frame with the thin handles, that's Brian's event to win. Like, he's really good at that, but then they changed the handles. So it's interesting. I guess for some guys, maybe better, some guys maybe worse.
Yeah.
Well, I think even looking at the times, I mean, the spread was just a couple seconds. Like, it wasn't, you know, you had a couple outliers on each end, but like 8 of the guys or 7 of the guys or something, it was in like a 4-second spread or something. It was tight, and so I think that's a good indicator that it was a little bit too light. Because you know, kind of like you said, where you want that gap between each of the contestants.
Exactly. I think Brian. Has coined the term the rule of 3 or the rule of thirds. You want 3 guys not to finish, 3 guys to be relatively close. You want 3 guys that just kick the hell out of the event. So, which is ultimately, I think, what you want to look for. But it's neither here nor there. Like, I made my mistake. I gave the frame too much respect. That's on me.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was just going to bring up the rule of thirds because Aethor was the only one who couldn't do it, and according to that rule, there should be 3 guys who can't do it.
Yeah, well, Aethor was also I will not give Aethor's business out, but I will say that man was injured up top and down low as far as extremities go the whole time. So we can say Aethor didn't finish, Aethor didn't do this. Aethor took 10th place with injuries at World's Strongest Man. So, like, I'm not gonna put his business out there, but there's if you want to ask him, go ahead. But there are some details to that I think the world should know, and it'll make his performance even that much more impressive.
Yeah, and by the way, that was in no way intended as a slight. I've interviewed him. He's a great guy, an extremely powerful guy, and won World's Strongest Man in Iceland very, very soon before Worlds. So all kinds of props to him.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah. Cory says hi, Poppy.
Hey, baby girl.
So Juan Daniel wants to know if you're excited for the Shaw Classic. You're on the roster, right?
Hold on, guys. I think both you start talking at the same time. I couldn't tell who was saying what.
No, I was saying Juan Daniel in the audience wants to know if you're excited for the Shaw Classic. You're on the roster.
Oh, I'm pumped. That was a show I was really kind of bummed I didn't get invited to last year. But I'm pumped. It would have been. I got 8 weeks notice, which I can't complain about. It's great. It's a go. Like, I'm excited. I'm pumped. I like Brian a lot. He and I got a little bit of FaceTime at the after party at World, so I got to kind of get an idea of who Brian is. And once he messaged me, I think it was like 10 o'clock my time, and at 10 o'clock in 5.5 seconds, I responded. Like, I was like, yes, like, we're doing this. What do you need from me? Like, that's how dare you ask? You should have told me I was coming, not asking me if I would. Like,
hey, I'm looking at the events on his website right now. I see a Max Log Press. You must be pretty excited about that.
I am. I am excited it's there, but it's only one event. And there are some events in there that I do need to work on a little bit more than just Max Log Press. So while I am excited, I'm not allowing that to just take over.
And then is for the Hummer tire deadlift, is that something that you do from time to time, or is it something like you have to shift focus to do that type of deadlift?
So I've never actually pulled on a Hummer tire setup. They're not widely available, actually. So what I have been doing is I asked Brian for the height, like, hey, what's the starting height for this? And he sent it to me. He took a tape measure, dropped to the floor, held it at the base of the bar, said, this is what your start position is. Cool. So I've been doing I'm rotating between floor deadlifts and elevated deadlifts. So it's nice. Brian has said there are no suits allowed. So I was kind of like, cool, great. I was starting to really like my suit a little bit. And I was having to fight myself to stay out of it and get back to, my passion, which is the raw pulls. So now I've got an excuse to stay focused there.
Yeah, I mean, from a fan's perspective, I would say, Isaac, do you agree? The Hummer tire deadlift was the star of the show last year. It was just awesome to watch.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think that thing was because, I remember seeing it, couple years back or whatever at the Arnold. They had it a couple times and everything, and it was always awesome just to watch. And so it's cool that he's doing a throwback to that. I will say, when I talked to JF, talking to him about it, he said that the Hummer tire deadlift, he was saying it's different than a regular elevated deadlift because the tires are going to break differently. And so he said even doing 3 tires versus 4 tires, he was like, you can feel a very major difference in how it breaks from the ground.
Yes, you're pulling for longer, ultimately.
Right. Yeah. Are you doing anything to prepare for that somehow, or try to simulate that in some way?
Sure am, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing either.
Right. It's not that it's tape, is it?
I really need that event to go my way, so I'm not tossing any hints out there for the other guys.
Do not blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Isaac, I need a second. I'll be back in just 1 minute.
Sure thing.
My baby's crying.
Better go handle it. Well, let's keep going through finals then. So we already talked a little bit about the Titans turntable. Is there anything else you want to add to that? I mean, it looked awesome. I'm glad that they put it in. It sounds like it needed to be tuned up just a little bit.
No, honestly, I don't think it needs to be tuned up at all. I really don't. I say leave it alone. Like, it was cool. It looked cool. Everybody had the same level to push from. Like, I say leave it be. Like, now bear in mind, I don't like those types of events. They don't play to my strong suit. I've got screws in both my feet and bone fusions there, so my big toes don't bend. So it's excruciating for me to have to push things like that. But I say, as an event, leave it the hell alone. Like, that was a good event, and it's one of those things where like, there may be some mechanical things that make it more difficult, but as a whole, you're not going to, no one athlete's going to experience different elements than the next guy. Like, it's almost perfect. Like, there's no uneven lanes. The ground's the exact same. The surface area resistance, everybody experiences the same thing. Like, it comes down to who can just fight harder.
Well, I have to say, I mean, just seeing the videos and stuff of it that I have already, like, it looked awesome. It was a phenomenal setup, and it's a really cool event to watch. So that was a plus.
Yeah, it was badass. I like that one a lot.
Well, let's what about the keg toss? Because, I mean, you did pretty decently with the keg toss, and now there's a keg toss in the Shaw Classic as well, I believe. I'd have to look up the list again.
Is it a keg toss or a bag toss?
I think it's a bag.
Yeah, it's a bag toss.
Oh, is it a bag toss? Okay. I haven't looked at the list in a little bit, so I'd have to refresh my mind. What about the keg toss? What'd you like and dislike about that?
So I really didn't dislike anything about it. The first time I touched a keg was my trip to the Arnold, Canada, and then the second time I touched a keg like that was at World's Strongest Man. So I would have liked to have had more time to train with them, but the pony kegs are actually pretty hard to come by. My only potential gripe, and I feel bad for even mentioning this because it's come and gone, is that I'm pretty sure I was the only one who made that. I can't remember. I can't remember what height it was, but it's basically where we all there was like a 6-way tie for third or fourth place on that throw. I'm pretty sure I was the only one that made it on the first throw. So I would have liked to have seen that have been recognized and maybe the points been split up a little differently. But even then, like, that's my only gripe. Like, going into it. And in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it would have made a huge difference.
Yeah, it was 3 attempts allowed, right?
Yes.
It was kind of crazy. What were your impressions of the record being set or broken and then broken again? It must have been, I I don't know if as a fellow competitor, if it's exciting to watch in person or you're super focused, but kind of what were your thoughts there?
I was excited. Once I got to be excited, I knew I personally probably wasn't going to break the world record and reset it. So that was an event, just lack of experience. Like, I was going out there to give it my all, but I was being realistic. I will say that it kind of bothered me that everybody was really surprised about how well Max did. Like, and to this day, when somebody goes, "We're so surprised by Maxime Boudreau and his performance in such and such events," I'm like, Maxime has been this good for a very long time. Like, you guys need to stop being surprised at almost anything that man does, unless it's deadlift related or yoke related, and in which case he's gotten a lot better with, but those are his slow ups.
One stone too. He worked on his stone a ton, and he came in and put on a really good performance with the stone this year as well. Whereas before, that was kind of a little bit more of his weakness.
Yeah, I say, I don't even want to say that, because Max, I want to say the year before the Arnold California, he had loaded a 500-pound stone.
Oh wow!
Like Max he's a complete athlete. Like, he lacks some. Obviously, we all have missing links, but it was funny because he and I we went against each other on the Giants medley, I believe. And was it me and Max? I believe it was myself and Max on the Giants medley, and I beat him, which I knew I had to get a jump on him with the frame, or I wasn't going to beat him, because Max's frame and farmers are ridiculous. But I turned around, we both jumped out of the frame, and I looked at him and smiled. He looked at me and smiled and said, "I finished the yoke." Like, that was the first thing he said. "Oh no, I didn't zero the yoke." And I was like, "Oh God," because the yoke has just always been kind of a weak event for him. And when we were at the Arnold Canada, he took it like a foot and stopped. Yeah, so like it was hilarious, and it was just one of those moments I'll never forget. Turned around, big old goofy grin on his face, didn't zero the yoke. It's like,
that's funny.
It's like, you bastard.
Yeah, he's an incredible athlete. I've been telling people all along, because I interviewed Max a few months ago and I knew about how much focus he was giving to the stones. He actually trained together with JF, and JF's kind of mentality is stones play such a large role in World's Strongest Man that if you're not really good at stones, you're going to have some issues.
Yes,
and so Max was, really, I didn't think he was going to slide between Tom and Brian. I thought he was going to maybe be third there, but hey, kudos to him. Max is a monster on stones.
No, he is 100%. Like, he truly is. I need to see a showdown between he and Trey, though, as far as stones go. Trey is a dominant stone loader. He's known for it. There's no question. But I like Trey bobble a stone, which cost him some. I want to see Max on his best day and Trey on his best day loading stones to a platform. Like, I want to see that race. Like, that's going to be one of those kind of, all right, like, what's really, the world's going to explode here in a minute.
So I have a question, and I think the answer is kind of like, it is what it is. It's not going to change. But so the idea of putting the stone up on the pedestal and having to make sure it doesn't fall off, should that be a thing? Because Brian bobbled one that way too. He got it up. Like, should he have to make sure it doesn't roll around and waste seconds there?
Yes, only because I've thought about this as well, and it's a question I always ask at different content. Obviously, at Worlds, it's understood, it's known. But what happens when a competitor picks that up? It sits on that, it gets it loaded up onto the platform, but then it rolls off the front. Like, it's what happens then? Well, I got it onto the platform. Well, you didn't change the momentum of the stone. You touched the front of the platform, and then it rolled back towards you. So you didn't load the stone fully on the platform. So then you have an exception to the rule, but then you have another rule. Okay, well, the stone can only fall off the back of the platform. Well, what happens if the stone falls off the back left corner of the platform? Like, it's just... unfortunately, removing that rule just starts a whole mess.
It opens too many other loopholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say to an analytical mind like yours, it would be, well, if the platform's a circle, we have to make sure we're exactly within this 180 degrees or this 180 degrees. And how do you know you're not a degree off here or there? So I can see where you're going there.
Exactly. Like, and you think I'm analytical? Oh, talk to Brian. Jesus.
Man, Bobby, this is why I like you. I do analytics for a living, so this is why I like you.
Yeah, like you have a chat with Brian. I don't think he discusses them as much as I do, because I'm only this analytical about picking things up. Like, truly, like, this is the only thing I'm this analytical about. Like, I love this. But if you talk to Brian, like, he is 100 times more analytical when it comes to any kind of sport performance he is involved in than I could. I don't want to say that I could ever be, but that I definitely am right now.
Hey, from your mouth to God's ears, Brian, if you're ever down to come on, we're more than welcome.
That man never stops moving, so best of luck. Like,
I hear, yeah, here's well, I can see as well on his channel, he's a very busy guy.
Yeah.
Oh, Cory says that was Owen saying hi.
Oh.
Cory, you get priority for all your comments on here. I'll put you on above everybody else. Kathleen wants to know what you think about Tom's stone lifting ability. Maybe what everybody else thinks, but go ahead.
As far as Tom's stone lifting ability, so I believe Tom will. I believe Tom can pick up a 660-pound stone. I believe he'll load it when he decides he wants to, and when somebody makes it. When he makes it a priority and somebody makes it worth his time, he'll do it. It's hard. So I believe that Tom is a nightmare for basically for stone to a platform. But I believe that Trey Mitchell is the guy that you shouldn't want to go against in a last man standing, where Trey's just got to pick it up and drop it. Like, I believe Tom is much better at placing them and attacking a stone from a very precise point and angle and moving with it. But I think Tom will. Oh, that's hard. I think he is the greatest stone loader we've seen, but I think he has only scratched the surface of what he is capable when it does come to loading stones.
That's a great description. So shall we talk about Titan's turntable a little more again? So whenever there's a pushing type event, you know, people like me oversimplify it and say Bobby has a foot mobility issue, so he won't do as well here. Is it that simple, or am I just not looking closely enough?
I want to believe it is that simple. And I've started taking more risk with that in my training. I'm in a position now to where if I crack these fusions open, like I believe I've already cracked them as far as like kind of compromised them. I always hurt. I'm always in pain when I'm just sitting existing as far as my feet go. But I definitely have lacked in my training because I have to look in terms of risk versus reward. Like, okay, I can beat the hell out of this event, but if I blow my feet apart and then can't compete, what was the point? So I don't want to say it almost is that simple as just lack of training when it comes to that. So it is something I'm working on. I'm working with a few different people that are much smarter than I am that I've kept close to me through my amateur career into my pro career on how I can stimulate the necessary grouping of muscles in the proper way to become better at those events without actually having to train the direct stimulus, if that makes sense. It's like, how can we beat around the bush without cutting down the tree, kind of?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, right? Because Laz actually makes that point about max effort on squats. Like, if you give all of yourself onto squats and you have events coming up, like, you may not have much left in the tank.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we talked about the max lock. Okay.
Oh, well, I was going to say, because if it hurts putting pressure through your toes, you could just get some titanium stilettos or something so that the pressure still goes through your heels. That way you could get the proper, pushing capacity without actually having to apply it through your feet, through your toes at least.
But then that pressure is still on the front of the balls of your feet.
No, but So that's what I was saying is if you find like a stiletto or something along those lines where it would be applying the pressure through the heel instead.
So I don't want to. So I hear what you're saying, but having looked into having shoes made, it doesn't work because so with the way that kind of shoe works and any kind of elevated heel, you have flexibility in that joint. That joint has to move. My joint does not move. So there would still be the pressure of my own body weight and the pressure I'm putting on my foot right then and there.
Yeah.
So you're not wrong. It was an idea I explored years ago and actually talked to a cobbler about having heel put on shoes after I purchased them.
I was gonna say I know a couple prosthetists, so people who make prosthetics, and I've seen some of the stuff that they've made for other people who have had foot mobility issues. Not quite like yours, but I could maybe mention it to one or two of them and see if off the top of their head if they have anything that would come to mind. But
yeah, I mean, I'm always open to entertain ideas, especially ones I haven't had yet. Like
yeah. It'd be interesting though, because especially you're leaning forward, driving forward when you're doing it. So it'd be pretty tough to design something for that.
Speaking of ideas you may not have entertained yet, Andrew wants to know if you're ever thinking of starting a YouTube channel.
So I have a group of guys I'm working with right now on starting a Twitch channel, actually. And YouTube will come after Twitch, after we see what plays well on Twitch, because then we're going to eventually, our goal would be to see what plays well on Twitch and then see what plays well on YouTube. So YouTube is a possible thing, but before I go to YouTube, I need to upgrade my camera equipment, which means have something other than my cell phone. So once I have the equipment that I could actually produce quality content that would go on YouTube, a YouTube channel will be a thing.
Awesome. And then World's Strongest Blacksmith, our buddy Tyler, says, who do you think should be in a 60-plus World's Strongest Masters? Who would take that title, Kaz or Magnuson?
Can I be completely honest with you?
Of course, always.
None of them will hold a finger to a gentleman by the name of Ken McClellan when Ken McClellan turned 60.
He comes up all the time.
That is, it's Ken McClellan's a different breed. As of right now, Magnuson would win because Ken couldn't compete. But if Ken could compete, Ken would win.
How old is Ken now?
That's a large man I'm about to piss off. He's not 50 yet.
I'll look it up. Don't worry.
Okay. He's not. Well, so it's funny. I was trolling him the whole time. The whole time he was at Worlds, and I took a picture of him like holding a burger or something and put fit over 60 hashtag fit over 60 on my Instagram story. So he's not 60. I don't even think he's within 10 years of 60, quite frankly. But yeah, no, Ken McClellan would win if he was in that fight. But if it was just those two, then I don't think Kaz has got a chance against Magnuson.
Yeah, isn't there that famous story where Ken was testing out World's Strongest Man equipment and having faster times than actual competitors?
So, do you want details on that story?
I would love details on that story.
So, at 2020, we'll go back to 2020 World's Strongest Man, then we'll get to 2021. 2020 World's Strongest Man, we had a last-minute event change from a vehicle pull to a farmer's due to the hurricane, right? The farmer's implements were, I would say they were like 330 in each hand or so, give or take. It was hard to tell at the time. They didn't really know either. Pick them up, carry them. Your front of your farmers had to enter a safe zone. You could put it down, pick it up, had to go back, couldn't drop in between. So I believe it was Darren Sadler told Ken, because they were trying to figure out would they damage the floor? Did they need to put mats down kind of deal? He told Ken to pick those up and run them down and slam them on the ground. So Ken picks them up, runs the distance of the course, no warm-up, no belts, no knee sleeves, no chalk, or maybe had chalk. Either way, who cares? Picks them up, runs them, slams them, turns around, goes, okay. And Darren says, okay, now pick them up and bring them back. Pick them up, bring them back, okay. And he's standing there. All right, put them down. Puts them down. They got the answer they needed. You had athletes competing that couldn't make it one length of the course. and he ran it down and back without a warm-up or a belt or knee sleeves. So then we get to the train pull. Kim McCullen did that twice. He did it a couple weeks prior when they flew him down to test the equipment. And then they were having issues with, due to the heat, which I mentioned would be a problem because metal expands, but the train conductor didn't think about it. The heat was somehow interfering with the brakes releasing enough in order for the train to move, right? So when they finally got it figured out, guess who pulled the train in tennis shoes?
Oh, we're talking about this year now.
That happened this year, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Kim McCullen pulled the train with tennis shoes on. The man is, it's just, yeah, it's jaw-dropping what he is capable of. And dare I say, he is a phenomenal athlete, but he is twice the coach than he is the athlete.
That's amazing.
Yes.
We need to see him compete. So is it because he doesn't compete in Giant Slab qualifiers, or what's the deal there?
It's above my pay grade to answer.
Gotcha.
It's not by his own choice.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean,
Yes.
it sounds like he would dominate, at least in some events.
I mean, he met Masters Worlds in the UK with the likes of Savickas and Terry Hollins. He beat them, I'm pretty sure, all there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. By the way, Ethan Zidell is in the audience. You might remember him. He sang the national anthem at Mammoth.
I do remember. Actually, I remember Ethan from before that when he started he's got a fairly well established Facebook group now.
Yeah, I love his Facebook group.
Yeah, maybe not established in terms of volume, but quality of individual that's actually involved with the page.
Yeah, for sure. His Facebook group is awesome for anybody that doesn't follow it. It's Strongman Discussion, I believe, is what it's called.
Yep, Strongman Discussion page.
Yeah. You guys should all follow that. And Bobby, you're on there too, aren't you?
I am. I'm not on Facebook very much. I am a member of that page, though.
Yeah, awesome. But what's up, Ethan? Nice to have you on. So let's see, which events haven't we discussed yet? We should probably wrap it up sometime soon and not keep Bobby all night. We didn't talk about the deadlift in the finals yet.
We did not.
No, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't talk about that yet.
So yeah, there's some stuff I definitely like to air out there about the deadlift, which led to what was listed as an injury withdrawal was not. So the deadlift event was going well. Hats off to Trey Mitchell. He and I have on more than one occasion been very close on deadlifts. I usually always edge him out. This year that wasn't the case. So Trey, very well done, my friend. So ultimately what had happened was the log press was within very close proximity to the deadlift event. We're talking like an hour. Like it was very close proximity, very hot outside. So I go out. It's on a different bar than we first used, so it's even whippier. It's an even whippier bar. And I crossed my deadlift straps when on my deadlift suit. I do an X strap. I do that because I train alone primarily, and it's very difficult to have to explain to somebody how tight to make your suit when it's a new person every time. So you have more control of that when you do it that way. Due to inexperience, I didn't realize that after so many reps, the deadlift straps slide up onto your neck and start applying pressure to your carotid arteries. And so right around rep 6, I started feeling a little woozy, and I was like, well, I know what's about to happen here. I was like, okay, well, now let's hurry up and get as many reps as we can before the lights go out, because at that point, it's just going to happen. And I got 9 reps, and I staggered because I started getting really dizzy. The room started closing off, and then I didn't go completely out, but I was definitely out on that one. I would like to tell you that I didn't do it on purpose, but I had already known on rep 6 it was going to happen. I just forced out another 3 reps, accepting the inevitable.
Yeah, and it's crazy how points shake out, because that was 6.5 points, and you were only 1 rep off the lead. There were just several ties.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But after that, I was pulled to the side by medical, and the doctor went ahead and told me that she wasn't going to allow me to continue. I understand why she made the decision she did. I obviously am not happy with it, but it was for some reason put down as I withdrew, which was not the case. I sat back there and tried to negotiate with him for 15 minutes. I was like, look, just let me go load 1 stone. Like, we all know, like, I'm not going to load the last stone right now. Like, that's probably not going to happen. Let's negotiate. Let me load the first stone. Let me have it. It's my first trip to the finals. And the doctor wouldn't budge. Magnuson was there, and that man, that man didn't speak. Like, he did not want to be there for what was happening. But because World's Strongest Man did this phenomenal thing for us, where we are now completely covered under their insurance. So if I get injured at Worlds, no matter how bad it is, as long as I go to the hospital while I'm there, they foot the bill.
That's fantastic.
It is fantastic, but as part of that agreement, they had to give a doctor complete oversight. So she, I don't believe she was familiar with strength athletes, but I do believe, while I don't agree with the call she made based on what my medical checkup had been, I was in superb health and condition. I do believe she made the best decision she could in the moment, even if I don't quite agree with it. So it was not a medical or injury withdrawal. It was, we're not going to let you do this. And, my hat goes off to Colin Bryce. I lost my shit. Like, I didn't say anything rude, but I stood up and said, okay, I need to go be by myself for a moment. And I walked outside, kind of got away from everybody, went out into the train yard. I was soon followed by Evan. Somebody went and told Evan, and then Evan and Gabe both came out because I was the one who was with Gabe first when they told him he wasn't going to compete in 2020 when he went to AFib. So, Gabe, jumped out. They both came up. It was definitely some bromance and a hug it out session. Hey, man, this isn't the end. You're solid. You made it to the finals. You're good. You proved you belong here. And then once we discussed it, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I just need some time to collect myself. And so they left me out there. And then Colin, actually from a distance, was, can I please come talk to you? And he came out and he's like, I understand what happened. And but he asked me, he's like, did you really mean what you said about the deadlift? You knew that was going to happen? I was like, yes. And he's like, that's absolutely. He's like, you're a lunatic. He's like, well, Colin, I had points to make up, man. Like what was I going to do? Lose the points? That wasn't going to happen. It's the finals. And Colin had, nothing but commendable things to say. Colin, a lot of people don't realize, but Colin was actually a very accomplished athlete back in his own time. So being able to talk to him and having somebody who had been there and who had gone into a different realm in the sport, in a different sport, never competed in strongman, but he did some stuff in the Highland Games. I want to say he was damn near a professional tennis player. I believe he went to the Olympics for an event one year. So having him there to say like, hey, I understand. I've been where you were. That was really cool to have that interaction with him. So a lot of people don't get to see that side of Colin. They just know him as the funny sounding British guy who talks really quick on the microphone, but the man actually has our best interest in mind.
Yeah, no, that's great. A great clarification. So, I mean, we've kept you all night. I don't want to keep you any longer, Bobby. This has been an awesome conversation. Before we wrap it up, anything, maybe Cerberus, anything you want to call out, promote, feel free.
Yeah, anything, Cerberus, obviously, they've got pretty much every piece of equipment you could think you're going to need. They've got some really cool stuff coming out. Not information I'm going to turn loose on what exactly, but hang tight. Obviously, Thompson 10 saves you a little bit of money. I'd like to say I'm now officially part of the Strength Collective. So if you're looking for coaching, distance coaching, that's the best place to find me. I do offer some event-based video chats. If you just want to work on a single event, DM me on Instagram for specific details as far as that goes. And then also look at the link in my bio for my newest sponsor, Iron Savage Apparel's got some pretty cool stuff coming out as well.
Awesome. And on Instagram, you are Bobby Thompson Pro Strongman?
Yes, sir.
There you go. Well, thanks again, Bobby. We really do appreciate you taking the time out, telling us all these great stories, letting us in on some insights, some lifting tips. And I think the audience found it just a great learning experience, as did Isaac and I. And maybe after whatever your next competition on the horizon is, we get together again and talk again. What do you say?
Sounds good. That'll be after the Shaw Classic.
Awesome, brother. Well, we wish you the best there, and we're both going to be watching it, so can't wait to see you compete there.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Take care.
Yeah, you the same.
Have a good night.
See you, Rob.